on.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Huskers Happy Hour. I have none of my drinks or anything in front of me, so if I have to skip out when I get dry throat here in a few moments, that's what it's going to be. Uh, Welcome to the show, proving once again any damn person on earth, I guess, has a podcast these days, and I'm one of those. Uh, let's see. Let me get an intro here. I'm joined tonight by Corn Nation, also Corn Nation's Jarek Shearer. Say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And tonight he's going to get he writes a lot of our basketball stuff, and so since we finally played a team that wasn't had like a and something at the end or was a directional school I'd never heard of, and being both sides of my family are from Georgia, and I never heard of West Georgia University before, I kind of took a little pride in like learning something new there. But we did play Oklahoma, and after everybody gave up about 5 minutes in, pulled out a very unhusker like high scoring victory, and Jarek's going to tell you all about that. First, I just want to give you a quick intro. We're playing Penn State this week, so obviously we're going to have a lot to talk about there. What did I call the episode tonight? Like Into the Valley of the Creeps. That's just because I thought that calling them perverts in the title might be a bit strong, but never forget there's something wrong with these guys. So here's a bunch of things. I'm just gonna give you guys some things you can get going with. And from what I see in the comments, you guys were already rocking and rolling before the show started. So good on you. Like we can absolutely talk about the perversions of Happy Valley, the desire for Joe Pa statues, things like that. All that mocking is on the table, and anyone who doesn't like it, I'm just going to ask, are you pro pedo? In which case, we're probably not your show. Uh, we got a night game in Happy Valley, which we're all really thrilled about. Uh, Monday, Matt Rhule at his press conference, really tried to sound like, I don't give a damn. I like a good challenge. You have to wonder, but you've absolutely got to present it to your team that way. We can talk about, I guess they're not really sure if they're doing a whiteout yet or not. I get that. Do you want to do a whiteout just because you're trying to stay bowl eligible when your season started with dreams of a possible national championship? We can talk about the James Franklin firing a little more because now he has been hired at Virginia Tech, and it doesn't look like the pool that Penn State has to pull from what I think some of them and some national pundits like to think of as a top 5 job. It feels more like a top 10 or even 15 job, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of big name guys out there waiting to jump on board. What do you think about that, Jarek? I know you follow a ton of football too.
Yeah. First off, with the James Franklin firing, I still think that's a mistake by Penn State. I realize that. I mean, he was just in the CFP last year with them. There's no way. I mean, there's no way they should turn around and fire a guy for having one terrible season. I mean, Penn State should have learned that. You wait till they go 9-3 the next year and then fire him like Nebraska did with Solich. So, you know, uh, but good on Virginia Tech for hiring James Franklin. I think that is a very, very solid hire. You think that the most competitive top 10 teams you're going to run into right now, at least consistently in the ACC, is Miami. Clemson has a down year. They'll probably be back. Georgia Tech, who knows what they're going to be like with Hayes King without Hayes King anymore. Virginia's pretty decent, but they're not in that level that James Franklin can't beat. So give it a couple of years, and I really see Virginia Tech under James Franklin almost reaching that Frank Beamer range.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. The only thing you said I disagree with, and it could almost be its own show, so I'm not looking for a whole dive in on this. I don't think Clemson's coming back. They've been on a slide, and they've been on a slide since NIL and the transfer portal happened, and Dabo Swinney can't stop bitching about it. This is
No,
one of those guys that gets paid 10 million a year and is absolutely outraged that players get more than a scholarship, that they should be doing it for just good hard work for the love of the game, and I think that's a reason that Clemson, because he's a very good coach, but they're just sliding. When they made the playoff last year, they did it what is the conference champion and were ranked 17th.
yeah.
And then they picked, for some weird reason, they picked them to fourth this year at the start of the season, third or fourth or fifth, somewhere in that range, which I thought was insane in the first place because they got dispatched fairly easily in the playoff. So I didn't see like this is suddenly going to be, one of the top 5 teams in the country. I didn't think it was going to end up as bad as it has. Like he's back at 500 now, correct? I think.
I believe so. Either
I
that or one
thought,
game under. One of the two.
yeah, yeah. I thought because they beat Florida State, and I thought that might have gotten them to 5-5. But yeah, I don't. It doesn't unless he changes his tune hard, and I don't know that he's capable of it. Much like Nick Saban quits at Alabama because those guys just want to talk about money, damn it. And it's like, yeah, because they don't have any, and you're making 13 million a year. Imagine. I mean, since I was like in probably middle school and starting to really become a fanatic about college football, it was always funky to me that hey, you get a scholarship, and I'm like, yeah, but these stands are full, and the TV deals keep getting better and better. It all kind of flipped when I was in college. And what was that, like the CF something, where it was started by Georgia and Oklahoma, but it was like 65 schools coming in who were thinking we can make a lot more money if there's not just one game a day and like one game at night on, and ESPN wants to televise, and then all of a sudden you could start watching games all the time. And then eventually like the pay-per-view stuff went away, and it's just about everybody's on TV somewhere. But it always was kind of nuts to me. It's like it's not an amateur sport because there's all this money flying around. They just want the only amateurs to be the ones who people actually want to watch. Nobody wants to
Right.
watch Joe crap his pants on the sidelines, which he did once. Uh, yeah, it's like, yeah, Nick Saban, it's fun to watch you yell at refs, but you're not the reason people are tuning in. You're a very big part of it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like granted, he got 5-star talent left and right. And isn't it funny with NIL, they can't keep it all 5 deep anymore. But, yeah, great coach. He did develop 5-star players because a lot of schools, had them. But dude, it's to listen to a guy making that much money carp about the players wanting money. It still just kind of boggles the mind. And guys like that, I think, should be like Nick and go, it's time for me to retire. Dabo just wants to keep waving that flaming sword into the sky. And sorry, I know I
Yeah.
jumped in front of you there.
No, you're good. Dabo needs to take a hard look in the mirror, and he's got a prime example of what could happen to him if he's not careful. Look what happened to Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. The exact same mindset. They want to be here. We don't need to dip into the transfer portal. We don't need to dip into the NIL or any of
Yeah.
that. And look what happened. All of a sudden, Oklahoma State sucks, and it cost Mike Gundy his job. Dabo has got to be very careful. If they go, let's say, I think even if they go 7-5 next year, I think Dabo's gone.
That's it. And it'll be one of those things. There's got to be people at Clemson, or maybe they're just full of those bubbas that just think, hey, y'all just be happy with that damn scholarship. So maybe it's institutional, but they've got to think there's a few of them going, here's why we're losing battles. And because they should just be, look where they were, even like 6 years ago. They should just be stomping all over the ACC with Florida State. And both of them are just, and Florida State, got to 12-0 that year. then got left out of the playoffs for the money reasons, and then the whole then the entire team left, or like transferred or graduated or whatever, or refused to play in the bowl game. And I remember people still like ranked him high the next year. And I was like, did you not watch the Orange Bowl? This is basically the base of their team coming back. And I think Georgia beat him like 60 something, like what it was 40. I think it was like 49 to nothing or 49 to 7 at
Yeah.
halftime, and ended up beating him like 63, 67, something. That maybe it was
Yeah,
42
it
because I
got
think Gunner, but anyway, yeah.
yeah, that game got over early. That was all that was to it.
Yeah, and it wasn't, yeah, there wasn't a reload scenario and process there. It's like your best guys are gone, and that included like your underclassmen who have transferred. And just I don't know. Let me throw a few more subjects out for people to talk about. Like I said, is Penn State? They were calling it a top five job, left and right. So when Franklin was fired, is it really? I mean, I get they started the season ranked in the top five. That doesn't make your job a top five job. It took a few years for Franklin to get it there. Because remember, it was Bill O'Brien's, I'll be there for 4 years and I'll be the savior. And he's like, this place is weird. I'm going after two. He didn't say that, but that place is weird. And then Franklin comes in, and basically takes over what's still a bit of a shit show and gradually gets it to where it's a top 10 and then a top five team. Yeah, and then a 3-game skid and boom, you're gone. And I think that played into Matt Rhule not having real interest in that job, because he mentioned he didn't like that Franklin had gotten fired. He's dancing around it because Pat Kraft is his very good friend, but because he knew Pat Kraft, I think, wasn't the driving force. It just got to the point where Kraft, it's so toxic there now. It's got to happen. But he didn't like it at all, and I don't think he wanted to. He's like, well, do I want to walk into a place where I'll be bounced after 3 if I'm not beating top 10 teams, or would I like to extend my contract 2 more years and be back to 7 years of, even if I get fired here, 7 years of money getting paid, and here's a place that I like and seems to like me and doesn't feel like anybody feels like anything. But they were working behind the scenes for what he wanted, which was more roster money, which sounds like was what he really wanted and got, because he didn't get a raise on the base salary at all. So yeah, I thought that made it a pretty easy decision. Along with, I thought he was being very genuine when he said he loved it here. So is Penn State really a top five job? I was listening to the Joel Klatt show, and I was kind of agreeing with him that this may be, or one of the other guys that was in there, this might be top 15. It probably top 10, but you could make a case that it's not, that it's a top 15 job just for what you're walking into there. Pat Kraft, I guess, is fantastic to work for. Like, has a very good reputation as GM, but it wasn't Pat Kraft who was the money and the power behind the push to have Franklin fired. So that's something you guys can talk about. And then Rhule possibly being unhappy was next on my list. And then Penn State, like, here's another thought for these games is they got to beat us, and then they have Rutgers in their last game, which shouldn't be too much of a problem the way that at least they're playing defense now. They win those two, they're going to a bowl game still. But they lose one, they're done. So there's something they're playing for. And then TJ Lateef, lousy against Southern Cal, a week to work, looked great against UCLA. Probably looking at a little different defense this week than the one that was coming off a 56-point thrashing by Indiana. But Penn State seems to be in a better headspace, having held Michigan State to 10, almost like shocked Indiana. So they're starting to look, at least defensively, like the team that could compete for a national championship. Now, both the coaches said, and even when asked about how they'd use him in this game yesterday, Matt Rhule said, I just want to watch TJ play. Well, it was obvious, so they weren't using him like they would any other quarterback. He had like 20, 21 touches, and I thought that was intentional. Give him chances to pop plays. Don't put him in a position where he has to win the game just by not making mistakes and doing what he can do and keeping it simple. Maybe springing a run or two and hitting those short passes, gained confidence, and definitely didn't lose the game. It actually helped him win the game. Now, Penn State might have to do a little more. Do they risk it, or do they keep it kind of like the same thing they did with UCLA and manage him a little more, realizing this has all the kind of the early looks of one of those like 17, 14, 21, 17 type of games. And again, don't let him start airing it out where they can lose it for you in a hurry. Risk reward could win it for you too. Do you take that chance?
I think with 2 full weeks, I think with Penn State, obviously Penn State and Iowa, their defenses are going to be a lot tougher than what UCLA was. I think what you can do is sprinkle in a couple of screens, a couple of short passes. I know everybody hates the bubble screen that goes for -2 yards to start off every damn drive, but at the same time, the one thing that a lot of people would like to key on, and specifically could with Dylan Raiola, is there was no zone read coming. You knew it was going to be a handoff to Emmett Johnson. So now TJ Lateef is a little more mobile, obviously, than Dylan Raiola is. The very first play we ran against UCLA, it was a zone read, and Lateef caught it for kept it, ran for 14 yards on the first down. Now that's on film. Penn State is going to have to honor that at some point in time. So, like on a 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 3, one of those first scenarios, you can turn around and fake the handoff to Emmett and keep it because you think that Emmett's going to get it because that's what should happen with Nebraska's offense. But then all of a sudden you turn around and TJ Lateef keeps it, gets the first down, and all of a sudden you're going, well, maybe we have to be a little more mindful of it. So now it gives you a little bit of an option for the next time around.
Yep. And then the last thing, absolutely right, by the way. And I think by that one he kept on the first play there, kind of UCLA, let UCLA know right away. Now we're not going to just do this if we,
Okay.
start getting stuffed a little. We're letting you know right now it's in play. And they probably put it in play 3 or 4 times all night. But like you said, you got to respect it. And then the last thing you guys can comment on, if you like, is Shedeur Sanders got his shot after Dylan Gabriel got concussed. As most people knew, it would go horribly, and it did. I think but it went worse than even expected. And the fun thing is, the two most delusional fan bases in sports right now are Caitlin Clark's fans, who are convinced that she was the first white player in WNBA history and is the greatest player in WNBA history, even though she's not even shooting 30% from threes. She's setting records for assists, but she's also setting even bigger records for turnovers and has like one of the highest turnover, assist to turnover ratios in the league, which kind of destroys the impact of the assists. And then she refuses. Her defense is hilarious. And then anytime she thinks she might get contact when she does drive the basket, she just kind of crunches up, makes faces, and collapses to the floor when people don't even put a hand on her. She's so terrified of contact. But they think she's the greatest thing in the WNBA. And then you have Shedeur, which is kind of the same deal, where they're literally going like, well, why didn't he get all these reps with the first team? It's like, because backup quarterbacks get reps with the backups. No one's gotten this before. So the excuses they're making just to say that, this is all some conspiracy. It's racism. It's like, yeah, about 80% of the first round was black, including the quarterback who went first. So, you can throw that out. Not that there hasn't been in the NFL in past years, 100%, but their need to win has far surpassed any of that. Now, they're saying, well, it's like they hate Dion. It's like, well, that's actually a legitimate reason they might not want him, is maybe why he dropped from 2nd or 3rd round to 5th round, is they didn't want the circus. And then they're like, and Cleveland's a horrible, horrible team. And they're like, as evidenced by the fact they drafted Shedeur while everybody else was still passing in the 5th round. And Cleveland probably thought, hey, bring some publicity and some money, and didn't realize just probably how bad he was. So anyway, but their fans are still out there, just with a laundry list of excuses. And God, he looked good at the end. It's like, my God, he was 4-16, sacked twice because he can't stay in the pocket, and he thinks he's Lamar, but he's got more like speed closer to a Manning than a Jackson.
Yeah.
And so anyway, if you guys want to have some fun with those comments, I'm all for beating up that hype machine. But anyway, you have to get out of here by like 8:30 or so. So let's talk about why I brought you in. Husker basketball, and absolutely we can brag about the longest winning streak in the country. But talk to us about what's going on and how they, 3-0 wasn't that surprising because they played like three kind of nothings, unless there was a sneaky good one in there. But then they beat Oklahoma, and you got Price Sanford, let her rip.
So the good thing about this team that is different from
Oh,
last
real
year.
super quick. I'm gonna grab myself a Propel. They know how much I love it here. You go, I can hear you, and I will be back in 10 seconds.
No problem. So 2 years ago, the good thing with Nebraska, the NCAA tournament team is they had a lot of guys who could shoot the ball and could spread the floor. A lot of times you had guys who could lead the scoring in one night and then turn around and score 2 points the next night. And you had a guy like Casey, Rink Mast, CJ Wilcher, you had Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, and Jamarcus Lawrence. That was 2 years ago. And on any given night, you could turn around and that would be a different leading score for the Huskers. Last year, things kind of went off the rails. Jamarcus Lawrence transferred to Rhode Island. Rink Mast had knee surgery, was done for the year. Tominaga graduated. Wilcher transferred. Uh, and then all of a sudden you brought in Braxton Mia and Andrew Morgan. You had Connor Esijan coming from Wisconsin. Esijan struggled the first half of the year. Morgan and Mia weren't the big men like Rink Mast who could stretch the floor. They weren't great passers. They weren't good distance shooters. You get Mia and Morgan in outside of 10 feet. They weren't overly spectacular. Coming back to this year, you get Burke coming back. You get a great transfer in Price Sanford from Iowa. Thank God Fran McCaffrey's gone finally. But you get the younger Sanford coming over. Esijan's another year into this system. Burke's back. Rink Mast is back. Jamarcus Lawrence transferred back from Rhode Island to here. So now you have a good starting point guard. And Sam Hoiberg has decided to play approximately 6'8" instead of 6 foot, because I believe he's actually second in rebounds on Nebraska behind Rink Mast. But with these opening four games, including this track meet with Oklahoma last Saturday night, if we cannot give up 99 in a contest the rest of the way, I'd be happy. I don't know if we could score 105 every night, but they're capable. But if you look at the four leading scorers in so far, you had Braden Frager, a redshirt freshman, who led against West Georgia. Price Sanford had 20 against Florida International, which led the way. And then Sanford and then Hoiberg. Sanford had 19. Hoiberg had a career high 18 against Maryland Eastern Shore in game 3. And then against Oklahoma, Sanford had 28 and Mast had 26. So there's not a lot of guys. Last year, if you stopped Bryce Williams, you stopped Juwan Gary. That was about it for Nebraska offensively. This year, you've had, I believe, every game, there's been 4, if not 5 guys who have been in double figures every single night. Price Sanford's averaging 20 plus in the last 3. He went 0 for 5 in the opener against West Georgia. He had 3 points. He had 3 free throws. That was it. And now he's putting up 20, 25 a night. Mast being back is a great big man for a lot of reasons. He's a guy who can shoot the ball from about 30 feet. He's got Keisei Tominaga range for a guy who's about 6'10", but he's also got the passing capabilities of a guard. So now, if you're a defense, yeah, you might have to sit down there and think he might post up sometime, but at the same time, you don't have a big man who can guard Rink Mast 20 feet out from the basket. You need him to go rebound. So all of a sudden, Mast got a lot of open shots against Oklahoma. And as soon as their bigs came out, all of a sudden Burke got stuck on in the post with some guards due to switches. Sanford got plenty of open looks. Hoiberg, Jamarcus Lawrence got plenty of looks. Nebraska shot 58% from the floor against Oklahoma.
What was
Yeah,
their
that's
three?
fantastic.
What was their three
They,
percentage? If
their
you
three
know.
percentage, I want to say they went 16 of 35. I want to say somewhere around in there. They shot really well. They had a lot of open looks. Specifically because Nebraska scored 61 points in the second half against Oklahoma. They were down 16 with 7 minutes to go in the first half, and at that point in time, I thought this game went from borderline threatening to be over with early to it's already threatening to be a blowout. And I was already frustrated, going, great, it's going to be one of these nights. And they turned around, and all of a sudden the defense kind of stepped up, and they got open look after open look after open look. And it was fantastic. Nebraska committed 2 turnovers the entire game against Oklahoma and had 20 assists. That's unheard of.
That's
And
nuts.
when we get to the next few games, New Mexico Thursday, and then whatever we do against them, we get either Mississippi State or K State Friday in a back to back. But honestly, I'm not too worried about those so much. And quite honestly, Nebraska could be undefeated by the time we see Creighton here in a couple of weeks, which would be great.
That was an outstanding update. Very, very, very happy with that. So one question, because I caught this one in the comments. This dude, don't throw the ball too hard to the basketball officials. They have soft hands and soft feelings. Well, and what was funny was, if I understand it, is like the ball came rolling over to some guy at courtside, and he pegged it at the ref, which I thought everybody kind of agreed was a little too hard, and so that he was escorted out. And the thing is, if there's one way I love killing what is supposed to be 5 minutes and ends up being 45 or 50 sometimes, it's watching TikTok. And some of my favorite people on TikToks are the friggin' Karens. And if there's a battle cry of the Karens, it's what did I do? What did I do? Tell me what. It doesn't matter if they're being kicked out of the bar, off the airplane, or in this case, because I looked up, if they were taking him off and pointing, and you see him go, like, what did I do? It's like, you know what you did. But he didn't do it, like, at least they didn't show it, but because they'll do it over and over. It's like they're a broken record caught on the skip and asking, what did I do? What did I do? Over and over, especially on the planes and the bars. They don't need a reason. They're just tired of you. Even there is a reason. They tell it to you once, and then they just keep going. What did I do? You have to tell me what I did. I want to talk to the pilot. I want to talk to the manager. It's like, no, this isn't one of those. This is, you're out. And so it was
Yeah.
just so funny for me to see the guy unleash a what did I do? It's like, what do you mean, what did you do? Come on.
For, yeah, after they escorted him out, he's like, "What did I do?" Yeah, you took the ball, instead of giving him a chest pass, you went like this and chucked it fairly hard. Like, I saw the replay of that, and I was like, and then he
Oh,
said, "He's
he did the old soccer throw in.
oh yeah, he chucked it hard, right? I mean, he hit the guy right between the numbers. He caught it, but yeah, I mean, he gave it full power, and he yelled at the refs. He goes, "Call it both ways." And between that and what he said, and that's all he said, that's what got him tossed.
Hey,
And it
so
was
I got a question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
from my understanding, he went up to the bar, kind of up in the bar area, up at the Sanford Pentagon, and he after the
Kept
game, he
going.
went to go to apologize to Coach Hoiberg, and Coach Hoiberg basically laughed. He goes, "Was it Kelly Pfeiffer, who's known as a Big Ten referee?" He goes,
Yeah.
"Was it Kelly who chucked you?" And the guy goes, "No, it was one of the two SEC guys." But yeah, I mean, any major Nebraska ball fan will tell you they know when and where Kelly Pfeiffer is if he's in Lincoln, and the first thing they go is, "Oh God, here we go. Here
Shit,
comes a bunch of
that
bad
guy.
calls."
Uh, well, okay.
Yeah,
So
they knew it was
Gary
coming.
Pe- Gary Pierce asked, "What's up with the Siegen? Has he been off,
So
or
Esijan
is he just kind of getting replaced as the 3-point guy now?"
So with Sanford coming in, Sanford's the starter with the seat from last year. Sejan was the starter kind of as that three guard.
Eh?
So Sanford is now coming in and filling that role. So what a Sejan is now doing is coming in as the sixth man. So from this squad, he would be like what CJ Wilcher was 2 years ago for us. A good guy, a good guard who could shoot the
Yeah,
ball. And if your starters aren't hitting, he could turn around and fill up the scoreboard for you. Could play
he had
fairly
those hot
solid defense,
streaks.
but yeah, and he blows hot and cold. CJ
Yeah,
Wilcher a couple years ago, he had multiple 20-point games. Don't sleep on Connor Esijan on this one, because if all of a sudden you get Jamarcus Lawrence or you get Price Sanford who's not hitting, turn around, here comes Esijan, you have another 3-point threat, and you just keep going as you were.
I got a question then, because and I admit it's like I love college hoops. I just don't follow it even close to how hard I did 20 and 30 years ago when I'd take like the Thursday and Fridays off, of work to just go watch a lot of hoops and just be a literal husk, like water sucking husk the next morning from drinking all day and night, and then out on Friday to do it again, and then just try to, you got to play hurt on Saturday and Sunday. And I seem to remember a siege, and even last year's is not always starting. Is that a solid memory, or did he start most of the games?
So last year, it kind of depended on the matchup. Usually, if it was a bigger team like a Purdue, who seems to roll out a 7-footer that they clone from their engineering department every year, he wouldn't start in games like that. He wouldn't start in a game like Illinois. Probably won't again this year. A lot of your bigger teams will bring in. It's just kind of a matchup problem for us defensively. Esigian he started off really slow last year, kind of getting into the system, learning how to play with the guys, stuff like that. But towards the end of last year, he started a lot more games, and he kind of filled that Keisei Tominaga role where you could take a lot of pressure off of guys like Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary, and he could turn around and score. And instead of staying outside the 3-point line, he made a lot of cuts to the basket and got a lot of layups. Now, right now, he's not really doing that because he hasn't needed to. The presence of both Buchtengill and Mast, they've been having success with guys who can post up. Last year, you really didn't have that outside of Andrew Morgan. Braxton Mia played limited minutes throughout most of the year, so it kind of opened up the middle of the lane for people for cutters. This time around, you really don't need it quite yet. You might with some smaller teams here, like Winthrop coming up here next week. Um, Creighton might be a good one because Ryan Cockbrenner is finally gone after what seemed like 12 years.
Yeah. Um,
But they'll
so
finally but they'll be able to do that. So Esigian will find a role. It's just right now he doesn't need to do everything that he's asked of.
Gotcha. Now, is Mia was he a big guy? Because I think he's the one I remember that was just constantly in games, and the only way I knew he was in was like when he'd check in and then check back out, and I never seemed to hear his name ever called. And he reminded me, if he's the one I'm thinking of, and I think it is, he reminded me of a dude when I was at Nebraska, and they had like Bill Jackman and Stan Cloudy and David Ponce and Brian Carr and those guys, and they had this dude named John Matsky, Nebraska kid, and he would start every game and he would play like 6 minutes a game and you never see him again. But it was just like Mo's way of like, I'm putting this local white kid in, and you guys can just live with that. And he would, yeah, I think, he'd have a foul or two, maybe a basket, maybe not, and he'd just be out there for 6 minutes taking up space, and Mo Iba's point would be made, and then out he'd come, and you wouldn't see him again. It was
And
just for
Braxton
like the 1 year, but yeah, that's who me. If he's what I'm thinking of, kind of just reminded me. It's like, okay, there he is watching two guys fight for a rebound. Or am I remembering that correctly?
Yep, and Braxton Meal was also
Yep.
very capable of being on the floor at least once for every minute he played. I Whether it was going for a rebound or what, he was not a graceful individual, and as a 7-footer who hit the deck a lot, you knew exactly
God.
where he was. All of a sudden, you just see him going for a rebound, and you get tangled up, and bam, down he went. And you're just like, well, somebody pick him up again.
Yep. Well, all right. I tell you what, that is what we needed. I really appreciate it. You laid it out great. And it's like I try to get Miley in here occasionally for the volleyball update. So, and yeah, so I'm going to be asking you back. And like I said, I know you said you had to go tonight. If you've changed your mind, feel free to stay. But if you ever do want to talk basketball, then hang out. And when we start getting nutty about football, go right ahead. But so if you want to stay, stay. If not, thanks so much for coming in, and we appreciate you. Everybody, give a little love to Jarek in the comments if you want to hear some more from him. And good night, and we will push on now and dive. And I'm going to go dive into the comments for the first time. And so now the real pain begins, Danielson. Just kidding.
Have a
All
good
right.
night,
Good
guys.
night, Jared. Thank you. All right.
Yep, thanks.
Let's start with Fred Sacco. Uh, it, I still haven't figured out when it starts chopping off the comments, but this is the first one up there. So I'm just going to take a chance without really reading it and see what we got here from Fred. Whoop, had it. Okay, NCAA 2006 could make you customizable signs for fans to hold up. I had a field day with Penn State. Did you break the NCAA 2006 out back in like 2011 or 12 just to make some Penn State pervert signs? Because that was awful. Let me see if I can. I had one thing here. Gonna try and split a view here, and I'm gonna find this. The Onion did a few years ago did one of the funniest articles I ever read from them. Let's see. Let me get it in here, and it was about Penn State, and it was called "The Rest of the Country to Penn State." Something is very wrong with you. And I just want to read a little of this because it was written so well. It had fictional people from around the United States just wondering what in the hell was wrong with Penn State. So it's like, and Fred's comment kicked me into this. Okay, so he says, it starts stating they felt deeply unnerved by the community's unwavering and impassioned defense of a football program and administration that enabled child sexual abuse over the course of several decades. The rest of the country informed Penn State University Friday that there is clearly something wrong, very wrong with all of them. The nation's nearly 320 million citizens all confirmed that the Penn State community's repeated denials of the school's culpability, continued displays of reverence for their former football coach, head coach Joe Paterno, and failure to meaningfully acknowledge and respect the victims suggest that they share a very warped perspective on the world and may indeed be suffering from some kind of serious mental health condition. You all need to know what you are doing and saying is extremely strange and that you should stop, said Alex Jelani, 35 of Tacoma, Washington, added that it should, quote, be pretty obvious that holding halftime tributes to the late Paterno, who did nothing to prevent his former defensive coordinator, Jerry Sandusky, from sexually abusing dozens of children, is totally unacceptable. Quote, all of us find it very strange that you cheer for him during games, paint his name on signs to hold up in the crowd, and attempt to restore a statue of him on campus. And this just went on and on like this, where everybody's just, you guys are just freaking weird. The entire U.S. populace emphasized that they were very, very troubled by suggestions from those affiliated with Penn State that only Sandusky is to blame and that the university was unfairly targeted at the expense of players and coaches who had nothing to do with the scandal, which, as we all know, they very much did, even to the point where the one who caught him was their former quarterback and I think quarterback's coach at the time, McQueary. And boy, the guy who did it, I remember Jim Norton doing a thing on it saying that didn't it say when you found out the guy that did it was named Sandusky, didn't it just feel right? And same with the guy catching him being called, McQueary. It's like, what? Well, who caught him in the shower? McQueary. Gross. Of course he did. And yeah, they just went on. Americans went on to say that it would take an extremely sick and troubled mind to read the findings in the free report and then somehow disagree with Paterno's immediate firing. And I did actually read both the grand jury transcription and the free report. And yeah, it's like anybody that didn't just like lose their lunch and want to make all of this go away and just do whatever the hell anyone said just to put it behind them, it obviously not read any of it. Or if they read it and were fine with it, even more gross. But yeah, this was just some of the Onion's finest work, just making up these people. Said 29-year-old Sacramento, California resident Alex Whelan, stop acting this way, please. You're being a bunch of delusional, selfish assholes. And by the way, this is what absolutely everybody thinks of you guys, Whelan added. You do realize that, right? And yeah, and then I think the finish of it was, you need help, professional help, Joe Rowland said, every single one of you. reached for comment, the Penn State community responded to the nation by shouting, STATE, go state, which pretty much summed it up. But anyway, I swear I didn't read the whole thing. So as I pop back into the full screen here, let's see what else we got. Yeah, Huskers got a twofer beating OU and Porter Moser, a former Creighton player. Yeah, and Porter hit the let's say the national consciousness, coaching at Loyola Chicago. Did was it Final Four he got them to, I believe, and they had like the 97-year-old nun that everybody loved, from that university. And after the Nebraska game, I did catch him being interviewed, and he had nothing but, he wasn't one of those guys, oh, and if we did this and if we did that and all that. He was doing nothing but crediting Nebraska. And that's what I really enjoy, the coaches that do that, because they want, I mean, granted, it doesn't make coaches bad people. I coached hockey forever. And the one thing you want to do is just pick your own team apart. Even if you're not mad, you come away from every loss, and if you're a good coach, the wins, and you go, you go as a team and as individuals. What did you find? What did we do here that we can do better? What can we improve on? What you want to be a much more complete team by the end. But when they're talking to the press, I love the coaches who just give the credit to the other team. We played well, they beat us, and that's basically what Porter Moser did. So good for Porter Moser, but also good for beating an ex-Creighton player. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, is this Shedeur? Because whatever this one was, James Morgan, not yet. He needs to give up another lead and maybe throw a TD in garbage time. Then he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I did see a lot of his Cleveland going to retire Shedeur's number type of stuff. Let's see. I threw up some of the basketball stuff, such as Fred. No one but Fred was going to come up with, like, so you're saying we're at full mast. Rink, we love you, buddy. I bet you did. If you were watching, you did not expect to see her name used that way. And Darhun says, yeah, do they chant "We are Penn State"? And then, ho ho, Penn State. Yep, we haven't forgotten you guys. We haven't forgotten you. or yeah, Fred Saka goes, or show me on the doll. If you know, you know. Where did Coach Sandusky touch you, Timmy? Okay, I shouldn't make fun of that, but yeah, the show me on the doll. Let's see. And yep, there was the basketball, and and after he said guys get caught in the post, James Boardman made it worse with on the post, and Fred said, thanks for the assist, James. The whiskey ain't kicked in yet. Boom, there's your whiskey. And let's see. Yeah, seems like Esigian either shoots for 30 points or 3. I think he's fairly consistent. It's more of I feel like he's fairly consistent in his 3-point shooting. He has the super hot nights, but I don't think he goes out and they're like matched by a bunch of like 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 nights. I mean, those will happen to everybody, but I don't think it's like half one and half of the other for Connor. I always wonder if the reason he didn't start as much was the defense, but when I watched him, he seemed to be playing pretty good defense. He is one of those guys that you meet in person, and I know I'm older, but good grief, that's one of those college guys that that looks 14. Connor, if you're listening, that's going to be a great thing down the road for you. Trust me, buddy. Let's see. If a Esigian can't find a role, you should call Bielema for help. We call him Bert here. We don't acknowledge a last name. He's just Bert. Bert, the cheap piece of crap. Okay, I'm thinking too much about Bert. Yep. Fred said he broke out the NCAA 2006 game in 2012 just to make the banners because, yes, he is just that sick, and aren't we all? Let's see. Hope TJ and the Huskers went out, says Joel Tilson. So do I, Joel. It's a tough one. I mean, honestly, after losing both or either, I would I'd still be hot. That's why my column's called the 24-hour rule, and I usually end up taking about 96 hours. Is I really want to introspect a little before I start letting my feelings be known. That's been probably since I started doing last year the post game recaps that go up after the game. There's a couple. I've never had anything where I went, oh God, I'm glad no one that really matters read it because I might have gone too far here. But I did go too far a couple times, but usually it was against Iowa, and I'd look at it and go, fuck Iowa. That's and Tilson says they are indeed Penn State. Let's see. Yeah, so they're sick up there. They ran Mike McQuarrie out of town. Yeah, get that. McQuarrie gets run out of town for doing what? Hey, he wasn't run out of town for not reporting it. He was run out of town for catching them. That started the problem, not the actual rapist, the guy who first caught it. And even then, he it just tells you what a disturbed community it was in general. I haven't heard as much of the Paterno stuff, so I'm trying to ramp back my hatred and mocking of Penn State for their atrocious behavior from beginning to end of that deal. And I have queued it back some. Like I used to just in the predictions articles just savage them for that shit. I would never pick them to win, even if they were like 23-point favorites. And I would make sure to point out that the whole place was batshit. And I'm not hearing as much, so I'm not trying to rip on Penn State every chance I get. Notice I said not every chance. I didn't say no more, period. So yeah, we're going to have a little fun this week, and we're going to have a little fun tonight. But yeah, he got McQuarrie. I was going to finish that, but McQuarrie gets run out of town for finding out, for catching him in the act, basically. Then he just runs away. And what does he do? He lives in a town where if you catch somebody raping a kid, molesting a kid in the shower, you don't go immediately to, it's like, you don't call 911 and then get in there and bust it up. You run to Joe Paterno. And then Joe Paterno runs to his people. And I mean, I can't even remember when it actually got reported. But yeah, the first thing should have been the police. We shouldn't have been listening to Penn State officials first. We should have been listening to the cops. So anyway, and then he got a job at Sam Houston State, but then Sam Houston rescinded the offer after pressured by Penn State people. And Sam Houston, as far as I'm concerned, that makes you real, I don't know, giant pieces of shit as well. Because what? Hey, we got this guy who exposed our pedo ring, or it wasn't a ring, it was a guy that exposed that. So we really wish you wouldn't let him work in football for you. I mean, if I'm at Sam Houston, I'm listening to that, I'm going, well, I have a lot of responses locked and loaded here. And I'm just trying to decide if they're the ones where I'm going to be so mad that I don't care if maybe I get reprimanded for speaking to you in this fashion, or if I'm going to politely tell you to go screw yourself. So yeah, it just horrible, horrible, horrible. Yeah, Graham Spanier went to prison for 2 years over Sandusky. Yeah, tried to cover it up. The crazy thing was when Joe Paterno, I think I talked some last week about how I can't remember if that was last week or if that was something else. But years before the Sandusky crap came out, this was a guy who was running. If he'd be driving on campus, he was pulling people over. That one hit the bricks, and I think he got, threatened with an assault charge. It was never going to happen because he was the most powerful person in that county. But he saw a car like roll a couple of stop signs on campus, beep, 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 flashing the lights, honking at him, jumped out of the car. They stopped. And the guy, it was like a couple in their early 30s. And the guy saw it was Paterno, and he thought, oh, this is so cool. He probably sees like a brake light out or something. And instead, Paterno just starts screaming at him about the stop signs. And the guy's like, well, why is that your problem? And Joe like reached in there and was like pulling on his shirt and trying to grab him. And the guy had to basically shove him off, and then he called the cops. The cops, told Joe he can't do that, didn't charge him with assault, which should have happened. But that's how power hungry the guy was. And then he hides behind the fact that, hey, Spanier and so, the athletic director, Spanier, the former Nebraska president, those are my bosses. So I have to listen to what they say. It's like, yeah, you're making like, at the time, he's making like 3 or 4 million probably, which is, the equivalent of the 12 or 13 now. But he is making more. He's the highest paid state official, like most college football. If it's got the state university and it's a big deal, the football coach is the highest paid state employee in just about any state you find that going on. And so, yeah, so he's pretending these guys are his boss. And I know it's like, that's how it works on the, the little, who's like the who's in charge tree or whatever. But come on, man, if you make 4 million and your boss makes 250,000, he's not your boss. You guys get together to talk about stuff. He does not bark out too many orders until you've done your job so shitty, then he can fire you. But until then, he messes with you, he's going to lose his job before you lose yours. But that was just so petty of him going, oh no, I don't know anything. And then it turned out, because I saw the emails from the grand jury thing, and I saw his emails where he 100% knew about it and was actively trying to cover it up and telling people not to talk and all that crap. All right, so, and what else we got here? Why do we have a 7-2 forward but no center? Damn it. We'll ask Jarek that next time he comes in. I guess Rink's technically a center, I believe, because he's what, 6'10", 6'11". He is. It's wild. I meant to ask Jarek this too. I wanted to go like, is he the only center you've ever heard of that has a better 3-point shooting percentage than his shooting percentage 3-feeder in from the basket? Because I will watch him just banging, basketballs off the rim and the backboard, next to the hoop, but just splashing threes like crazy. And it's not like he shoots 20% 3 feet from the basket, but he has those little doink doink doinks every now and again. Sandusky says the Seagian's too old. Thank you, Fred Sacco, everyone. He's here all night. Tip your waiters. Let's see. Yeah, Paterno was getting crazier in his later years. Yeah, he was getting a little nuttier. I mean, he that's when he was like really, I think, getting power hungry and just, and I've told the story on here where the site I worked for years ago before Coordination, we had a guy there who, he just went by a pseudonym because he worked in the athletic department and he worked with the travel. And so one time when they did that home and away back when we had Solich, and I guess we were reserving our rooms and everything. And, because you got the band, Nebraska's, the traveling city, the team, the band, the huge support staff, and all that stuff. And so they're getting it worked out with this hotel, and they think they've got it. You need this many rooms. You need this group on this floor, this group on this floor, et cetera, because you got to make sure the football players aren't bothered by a bunch of noise. And he said he's talking to a very nice lady from the hotel, and she's like, okay, so bing, 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 we've got this all set up. And now let me just get a hold of Coach Paterno to get the okay, and you guys will be good to go. And he's like, what? So I was like, yeah, you have the hotels getting permission from Paterno for like large blocks. That's insane. So yeah, he was getting a little crazier, but this one, I don't know if he was. I guess he was. Yeah, he's starting to hit the later years there in 2000 because all of it goes down in like 2011 or whatever. But he'd been protecting him. As it turned out, it might have gone back to the late 70s, according to discovery on a lawsuit an insurance company had filed back in like 77 or 78, where there was some legal action with Penn State and an insurance company, and part of it was, and by the way, you got a guy doing this. So anyway. Serious question. If what happened at PSU happened here, could you still be a fan of our athletic program? Friends and I were almost unanimous that we'd quit following the school. Okay, if you're talking about like the same exact thing, I'd still be a fan of the team and the players. And the not the coach, not that the head coach was involved, but the team and the players. Yeah, I would not turn my back on them. But here's what I would not be doing. I would not be saying, I don't care. Put a statue of this guy out there who covered up child rape, pedophilia, all the names for it for decades. Yeah, but we want a statue up there because he won a bunch of games. That I'm going to go down there and be part of the group knocking that thing over if they try to bring it out. That guy's, I mean, just as an example. Let's say that it was, Tom Osborne who covered this up, just for the sake of argument. Yes, I'm not going to be a Tom Osborne fan anymore. I'm going to want him with what they did with Paterno. He died shortly after, but yeah, you no longer have anything. We can't as a school prosecute you, But what we can do is kick your ass as far off campus as our boot will knock you in the air. And that's what they boom, you're fired. You're gone. Yeah, no pension, no nothing. You now have nothing to do with Penn State. And then kick the entire, and they had like the Paterno skybox or whatever. And they're like, and that's not the Paterno skybox, and the family, you're gone too. And that I'd be fine with. I do not want there would not be a Paterno box up there because the family has it because of Joe. Well, Joe's done this, so the family, we're not going to ban you from games. You guys maybe didn't know, but you're going to be paying for a ticket like anybody else. You're not going to be in a skybox named after that guy. There's going to be no statue, and the university itself, because obviously everyone, the Spaniard, the athletic director, they all lost their jobs too, went to prison, and the new group came in and made it clear, it's the Penn State, even the former football players. Now maybe if you're going public saying put a statue of Paterno up, I may be going, well, you are now disassociated from Penn State until you make a very public announcement, going a full 180. I'm not going to welcome guys back in the name of free speech because it's horrible. It's one of those things. You're free to say it. That's your right. But if I'm Nebraska and something like that's going on here, and former players of the guy are being very public about how they want a statue out, that's fine. You can say it. You're not going to be arrested for it, but you're also going to be disassociated from the University of Nebraska. I want you off campus. You're banned from campus. You're banned from games. All of that, and until you go very public, and it better sound convincing that your position is now 180 degrees, and you renounce all of that, and you're no longer in favor of a guy who did that, having a statue on campus, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I'd stand. I don't think I'd just completely disassociate myself from, like not cheer for the team in the school anymore. But I might stop if they did kind of like, oh, but we got a lot of guys who are saying this shit or played a part who haven't been kicked as far as you can kick them. Then I might ask myself, okay, if this is the leadership there and they think that way still, then I'm probably finding another place. But like I said, the people that took over at Penn State all seem to do their part to do things the right way. Apparently did it so right that a lot of their sanctions got lifted early because they had made, and I heard that at first. I'm blowing up. What do you mean you're lifting those sanctions early? Then I read deeper into it and how they were kind of fighting off that big sentiment about Joe Pa's statue. And so they did do their part to try to fix what had been allowed at Penn State, get rid of that mindset, do everything they could to enlighten everybody, and kick everyone involved the hell out of there, whether they were getting thrown in jail or not. So I'm fine with fans, Penn State fans, most of them I don't think are anymore, because now you're getting about 15 years away from it. But I doubt you go with any of them going, pedophilia, I don't care, man. We won ball games. There are probably a few. And what can you do about just Joe Fan? But I don't think most of them feel that way. And it's not based on any hard evidence, except I still got to believe the world's a better place than that. I really, really do. That they're probably not going to want to sit there. If they say they're a student there now, they're probably not going to sit there and listen to somebody give them a ton of shit. Like if I was sitting there doing that to their face, and not for the entertainment of Husker fans, I wouldn't expect them really to put up with it. And maybe that would come off as, oh, they're for it. They're just like, I'm just not for talking about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's been dealt with. I wasn't here. Can we just watch football? Yes, we can. All right. What else we got here? Yeah, Penn State covered up they did cover up the health issues. They did do that. Let's see. And then was it Frank had been turning down okay, I guess Pitt Snipes talking about Solich turning down head coach job for years and was seriously leaving after the 95 season. Tom promised to step down after 97. Yeah, because Tom had promised him, I won't say how I know, I don't want to give anyone up. I just ask you to trust me that it's a weird flex if I am making it up. Let's put it that way. But when I was in school there, and this is probably about 86 or 87, somewhere in there, is I was told by someone very much who'd be very much in the position to know that even as far back as then, there wasn't a date looming or anything at that point. Tom was still, young, pretty young. Uh, I guess he'd be 50s then, but in the 80s. But anyway, had told Frank Solich that when if he did, it did work out to where he would step down on his own someday in good standing, he was going to recommend Frank for the head coaching job. Now, I don't share the love of Frank as a head coach as much as anybody. I thought he looked ill prepared often. He didn't seem to know what was going on in the sidelines. I got some confirmation of that. And then I think what propped him up for a while was Eric Crouch for those 3 years, because then it took the dive the very next season. Then they come back and have the 9-3 season, but that's also a season much like Mike Riley's 10-4, where they're playing one of the most unbelievably easy schedules in the country. They beat we beat Okie State 17-7. I think they ended up unranked. And then they got absolutely demolished by what was like a number 21 K-State, like the 38-6 game where Bo wanted to strangle Bill Snyder for bombing one in at the end. And then Texas, like with Vince Young as a freshman, was unranked and blew him out of the stadium. So that was a 9-3 that wasn't too impressive. It was just a real easy schedule. And then they let him go. And man, he might have been getting offers back in the 90s, but he wasn't getting any then. He got no offers the next season. Then 2 seasons later, the offer he gets is the worst team in the MAC. And, where he stayed, and he did okay. I think he won him a title game or two. What was he there, 20 something years? But he definitely took them to kind of Iowa status in the MAC, to where they were always going to be 7-5, 6-6, 7-5, 8-4. But they weren't the 1-11 jokes anymore. He made them a better team. But I always thought he was in over his head in the head job at Nebraska. I thought he was a fantastic assistant coach and coordinator. So I don't want to make it sound as if I just have the hatred for Hank. Does any head coach in football get to name their successor anymore? I don't think so. I don't think so, because no, Nick, Saban didn't try. He just quit, and then they went out and grabbed Kalen DeBoer. So I can't think of a coach. I'm wondering if Vince Dooley at Georgia might have been one of the last ones to do that when he quit in 87 or 88. And I think was that when Ray Goff took over, and that was a former quarterback of his. And then I think he might have had a hand in that. But at that point, I'm not following Georgia like I follow Nebraska, so I can't remember what the story around that was. But no, my first instinct would be no, I don't think anybody names their successor anymore. Saban would be the only guy I think who'd fall into that category. I can remember just retiring on his own recently. If anybody thinks of anything else, pop it in. We'll go down there. Let's see. Yeah, but here's the thing: we're not always serious here. Pitt, I think Belichick is picking a successor when he leaves UNC. He's naming, what's her name, Jessica, or whoever his little booty gal. Yeah, Belichick, his career is not starting off in a way that leaves me, because from what I understand, he want this. I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but there was a big belief out there that his son, he was going to coach for a year or two, and then name his son as a successor, and that was part of the deal. But I think what's going on there right now is he's not going to be able to demand too much of anything at this point, especially with her running around on the sideline. My God, that's funny. But what was the one? Was it TCU that just absolutely carpet bombed him in one of the early games? And then she's in her go-go boots, and she's up there chatting with him. And I just wanted to do a meme that said Bill, you guys got to score more. This isn't fun when this happens, just, it's just turned the place into such a, like a national punchline. I was going to say, you don't want to call him a joke, but it is. It's just North Carolina. Let's put it this way. Have you heard anything this year where you go, yeah, North Carolina, nice job? Just even if it's on bad beats or something, or hey, they covered that over. But hey, here's something nice they did that actually made the national. No, the only thing that's made national news are punchlines, and yeah, it's like old Billy's getting hummered down there somewhere. Yeah, Bobby Bowden. Yeah, I'm is he still alive or did Bobby Bowden die? Because I always thought because I think if he died, he didn't die like 3 weeks later, like Bear Bryant did, and I think Paterno basically did. Where some of these guys just, it's almost like guys who do 50 years in prison, get out, and have no idea what to do and end up killing themselves, which happens, I guess, from time to time. Or maybe I'm just taking the Shawshank Redemption as a true life story. But yeah, these guys, it's like I think they've been coaching so long they just don't know what to do. Matt Rhule on Monday was talking about somebody who was like, when did you know you wanted to be a coach? And he talked about, I always wanted to be a college football coach. He's like, ever since I can remember, he just thought college football coaching looked like the coolest thing. He wanted to do it. Now it's been his life. And so that makes me wonder, is that I could see Rhule being a guy that's coaching into his 80s, or, maybe it's a thing where they fire him in some place, hopefully us, that it goes so well that they're firing him in his 70s, 30 years from now, because whatever. I mean, not, I'm hoping this, but that he becomes thing where someplace fires him because he's too old, and then all of a sudden, he just keeps coaching here. He disappears from the national scene, and then you find out he's coaching up at Peru State, like Lou Saban was when he was like 90 or something like that. And Lou was coaching Peru, I believe it was Peru State here in Nebraska. And I could see that being Matt Rhule. Tubby Smith now, or at least there was this book that John Feinstein wrote about mid majors and just how he was kind of grumpy, and it's like, and it's so lousy for the mid majors that these guys, their best players, will leave for a better team, for a Division I team. And I was like, look, I get it. It makes coaching mid majors tougher. I would think it'd make it a little easier to keep your job, knowing this is what you're fighting with, is you're just constantly recruiting your best player. But guys, are we putting the mid majors ahead of these guys' future? Let's say you got some guy that scores 30 points a game, down at Valdosta State, and hey, okay, well, I might be. It's like, and somebody tells him, we think you might be an NBA prospect. You should transfer to a power conference school in Division I, and let's see what you got. And why would you want to? If you want to gripe about it, that's fine. But it's almost like he's wanting rules that these guys, it makes it tougher for these guys to transfer. Something's like, you're going to make a rule just to make it easier for coaches rather than what's best for this guy's future. Come on, you know. Um, but anyway, yeah. But coach, anyway, in that book, it was amazing the number of big college basketball D1 coaching names, like championship coaches, that you just thought had like moved on. And some of them had, a lot of them had retired and then found out they didn't want to be retired. And Tubby Smith, won a national title at Kentucky, I believe. That he coached a lot, Minnesota, Georgia, but very, very, very successful coach. And he shows up in this book coaching at a college in North Carolina called High Point. They're not mid-major, they're bottom major. They're the one of the schools that's playing in a division where the only team going to the tournament is the one that wins that conference tournament, and at best they're going to be like a 15 seed. That's where the place where Tubby was coaching, and he was like, it's kind of fun. All I got to do, I'm not having cameras in my face. I'm not having to necessarily do a press conference after every game. I'm just coaching a bunch of kids that are playing ball at a small school because they love basketball. And you still got to go recruit them. But he seemed to be like, hey, don't get me wrong, it was fun being the best of the best. But yeah, I'm getting a little older, and this is definitely a little easier, and still a lot of fun. So I did enjoy that part of it. But I can see how Bowden didn't want to leave. I get it. Before I go on, and I know we're having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun rambling in the comments right now. Saw a tweet today, and I retweeted it on coordination. It was one of the funniest things because he's like, "Hey, man," somebody was talking. It was like, Virginia Tech hires James Franklin, and this guy retweeted it with the comment, "Hey, okay, man, good for him. But dude, if somebody threw $49 million at me to go away, you would not find me in a different job a month later. And that's that answers the question, I think, how much some of these guys love coaching. Now, a lot of it is great. I got a lot of money, but I don't want to go out known as the loser that got fired. And that'll play the big part too. It's like, fuck you. I'm going to get a job somewhere. I'm going to make this team a winner. And I'm going to show you guys I know how to coach. And, it might not necessarily be a middle finger back at the place that fired you. With Franklin, it might be a little bit. I think he's too classy a guy to do that. I got to be around James Franklin a little at those Big Ten media days. He seems like a good guy. I didn't used to think so. I just saw a couple of clips where he'd get testy at a press conference or something, but he just seems to be a really nice, positive outlook guy. Has that charisma around him where you want to kind of listen to what he has to say. So I will, and let's face it. I think Jarek was absolutely talking about it. Man, the dude dove into Penn State at their worst, and Nebraska's record. I'll just jump to this one I had at the end. We are 4-1 against them since we joined the Big Ten. Now we haven't played them in 6 years, so they obviously got a lot better in this last 6 years. But I think like under Frost, I think the last time we played them, we edged them out. It was one of those things I think we got an early big lead. Frost started trying to kill the clock with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter, as he was kind of want to do as Nebraska's coach when he was getting desperate for wins. And we pulled it out. And I think in another time, I think we beat him before that with Bo. I think we beat him on a field goal at the end, or that might have been early Frost. But yeah, when last we played them, we were pretty competitive with each other, close games, and we were winning those games. So that's kind of interesting to think about. So let's see what we got here. My issue with PSU was, at least back then, that so many of their fans and the outgoing administration played the victim and acted like the punishment was too strong, and then it got rolled back. Yeah, and I don't think that's what got it rolled back, though. I think what got it rolled back was the people who had kind of taken over had done their best to, I don't know what you say there, not wipe away the sins, because you want to remember, but we go forward, just kind of we go forward, and we don't behave like that anymore, ever. And I don't know. And yeah, the fans were whining from day one. I don't think it got rolled back because the NCAA don't give a shit if everybody's crying. That nobody can turn a deaf ear better than the NCAA. But they were. I can see why if that was, I don't think that was the case personally, and you might be right. To me, it was just they'd never shut up with it to begin with. So when it did get rolled back, it could be seen as, well, they were tired of the bitching and moaning. And I don't think that was it. Let's see. What's this? The Promise thing was in several books. Andy, I laugh out loud. I forget which one's the Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, with Solich. Okay, I never saw it. I never saw it in books. I just had it. I had it once from back in the '80s, and then when he got hired, that was just one of those. The Rumble was like, oh yeah, Osborne had promised him, and to me, I just kind of let it go because it had lined up with what I'd learned before. Minnesota and Kansas wanted Frank at some point way back when. Yeah, they didn't want him when he got let go, though. They'd seen him with a run as a head coach. They weren't impressed. Tom was so organized, and that's something that Frank didn't sound too organized. He just seemed to be going in a lot of directions at once, and he was always making that Pete Carroll face during games. Like when Pete Carroll's five-star Army ever actually got in a close game, he just looked like he couldn't get any air into his lungs. The Texas game, second half of the Texas game, watch Pete Carroll every time you show him, and you see the face of a guy that doesn't have a clue what's going on. That because it's not them rolling to another 55-17 over Oklahoma and national title win, that he just seems like his soul's trying to leave his body. Army wanted him, but he went to Ohio. Man, I don't know. I might have preferred Army. I never heard that about Army, but yeah, again, not a top tier job. Um, yeah, right, Joe. So they talk above. Where'd he go? 150 plus man rosters, and nobody stood around at an Osborne practice. That is why, to me, college football coach, just because of the size of the roster, is the most insane job in the world. And from what I heard at Osborne practice, if you were kind of at the bottom of that 150, nobody might have been standing around, but I heard that on some of those teams from like guys who are, walk-ons at the bottom of the walk-on pile, that you might not have been standing around, but you might have found yourself just running around doing the same thing over and over a lot too, because they weren't really too concerned with you guys. It's like that walk-on, man. They spent so much money on walk-ons to pluck that one diamond in the rough occasionally. When you actually compare the number of players on a football team, especially walk-on days, even now at a 105, it's insane how many players that there are on a roster for a team game with 22 starters. And you're going, just straight up. It's not, that, but it's just straight up. It's 5 deep. And it would be like having 30 something girls on the volleyball team, like 30 girls on the volleyball team or something like that. So yeah, it's amazing the money they poured into that. No, there's not another sport even close. In baseball, it would be like having about 45, a roster of about 45 or so, which the only thing that compares to is like the 40-man September call-ups in baseball. But that was nuts. And now, yeah, even at 105, man. And with this 105, you're trying to keep everyone very, very involved down to the lower run guys, just because it's just at that area where you might need them. You never really needed the 150th guy. That was the guy you saw come rolling in against Utah State or something when it was 68-0, and they're taught the wrestlers and like maybe a couple basketball players are going on the field. Oh God, Dion. Fred Dion was set to name his missing toes as successor, and after them Shador, I think. Okay, tell you what, let me roll through here because I figure out where I am and mark it. Choo choo choo. Whoops. Don't worry, not the kind of whoops where the screen's about to blank out or anything. I didn't have Okay, stop this here. Gonna go through. There's a lot of stuff that don't have to worry about. I did the drive chart last week. I did the PFS. Went through the Huskers stats. So I did just want to take a few minutes here to talk Penn State with you. As you know, Drew Aller, their star quarterback, out for the year, and what's his name? I forgot to write down his first name. Evan Grunkmeyer, something like that. But it's Grunkmeyer. I remember him because he was an Elite 11 kid when I think Rhule was, one of the top guys, and he's doing okay. Since taking over, he's 72 of 111, completing about 65% of his passes for 699 yards. So it's 72 completions. Yeah, he's averaging less than 10 yards of completion. So yeah, it's very much a short game, but I'll get into that a little deeper and why we should maybe worry a little there, despite our defensive backfield. Yeah, he's only averaging 5.6 yards per attempt. Has a long completion of 67 yards. You don't know if that's a screen or something though. And 12 TDs, or let's see. No, I'm sorry. 6.2 yards per attempt, 4 TDs, 4 interceptions, not impressive. And he's been sacked 9 times for a loss of 65 yards. When we adjust his rushing for the sack total, he is not a rushing threat, which is good news to hear because we got 2 running backs to stop. He's he's carried 20 times for 39 yards, so he's averaging just under 2 yards a carry. He has shoved one in. Oh, okay, I got to rephrase that. He has scored a touchdown. I don't want to give Fred that make it that easy for him to work with it. Now there are 2 running backs. If you watch you watch Penn State last year, you remember him, Katron Allen, 5'11", 217-pound senior, and Nick Singleton, who I think got most of the attention and maybe the carries in the playoffs. And he's a 6'2", 224. They're both seniors. Allen's definitely the more successful back this year. He's carried 163 times for 917 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per carry. That's the 67 long. He's got a 67-yard touchdown run and 12 touchdowns. And then Singleton's 107 carries for 419. He's taken a little bit of a backseat. Only 3.9 per carry, but a 51-yard touchdown run. If you saw him last year, you know he can motor. He's I mean, he'll get you the tough yards, but he's not a slow 224 pounder. And then he has 9 TDs, so they got 21 rushing TDs, and both of them were over 1,000 yards in 2024. So the two top receivers are what's this guy's name? Tabor. You know what? I have to apologize. I'm not going to pronounce that right because I was scrawling. But he's got 36 catches for 369 yards, 10.3 per catch, a 43-yarder, but only 1 touchdown. And then they've got Devontae Rock, who's carried it 25 times for 360 yards, 14.4 per catch. So a little more of a threat, 75-yard long and 5 touchdowns. Now, here's the thing about Grunkmeyer and why we should be a little more worried than his stats suggest, because he's not, this is a kid with a talented future, but he's I believe, redshirt freshman, because I believe he was in Dylan's class. But here's a reason maybe, let's just put it this way. 4 games into Lateef, we would like to see Lateef progressing like this. His 4 games ago, his first start, 15 of 28 for 93 yards, and only averaged 3. That's only 3.3 per attempt. So basically, you're just using him as an extension of the running game there. There's nothing really to threat, no threat there. Then he goes 19 of 28 for 145, up to 5.2 per attempt. Still pretty low, still just dinking and dunking, but 3.3 to 5.2. Third start, 22 of 31, 219. Still under 10 yards per catch, but he's up to 7.1 per attempt. And then he doesn't throw it as much last week against Michigan State, but he completes 8 of 13 for 127 and averages 9.8 per attempt. So, somebody, I think it was Joel Cladigan, he might have just checked that game because he said, and they're only throwing it like 13 times a game. It's like, no, they went 28, 31 before they went 13. So he'll put it up there, but it's going to depend on their offensive line. And from what Rhule's saying, he's always going to say the opponents are great, but he says their offensive line is elite. So he may not be able to move, but we haven't put a lot of pressure on guys. We put good pressure on Maivea, and we got some on Nico. I think we sacked him each 3 times, which was, hey, we're getting more sacks than we're giving up. I think we've only given up 2 sacks in our last 3 games now. And while Emmett Johnson, was lighting up the rushing numbers, and we're to the point where that I did it in last week's poll. I asked, hey, okay, we're a few games beyond Minnesota now, 2 sacks in three games, and now we've got a guy we're talking about for Heisman and Maxwell and Doak and All-American stuff like that. Are we really going to fire? Are we still of a mind to fire our offensive line coach and doing all this in the offensive line where we've lost 3 guys, 3 of the 4, we had the 4 tackles that, we call them the 4 starting tackles. We had 4 guys, had an or at each position, and 3 of those 4 guys are done for the year. And so, you're starting to see guys like Grant Bricks and Preston Talmua come up, your redshirt freshman, boing, hey, you guys are next man up. And we're getting stronger, it seems like. We're going to find out a lot against the defenses of Penn State and Iowa. But I said, at least for now, do you still feel the same way? And so I think it was 40% said lines improved. And I threw one in there. It wasn't necessarily like a lifeline for Raiola. I mean, it kind of was, but not just like a save your job lifeline, is we've now got no restrictions whatsoever on coaching, on assistant coaches. Like before you could have 10, the rest of them had to be the statisticians or the consultants or whatever you wanted to call them. And they were not allowed on the field during games, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now all those are out the window. And I counted up the number of offensive linemen on the roster. We have 23 offensive linemen. So you got guys, like coaching a position group much smaller than 23, and we've got 2 linebacker coaches. So I just kind of threw it out there, and I said, I'm just throwing this out there. Do we need another offensive line coach? Like, I don't know if you'd call them co-offensive line coaches, maybe interior and tackle coaches, because it's like outside linebacker coaches. And does maybe that give a lot of these guys a lot more attention from the coaches? And it seems like, man, you're still going to have like, one guy coaching 13, another one coaching 9 or something like that. So there's still going to be like, bigger in the tight end room. So I just thought it might be an idea. Well, 30, as I think 37% went for that. And so you had 77 in one form going, yeah, it's not fired Donovan Raiola anymore. There's improvement there, and yes, that he's doing it in the face of some. I think we're still like the number 1 or 2 most injured team in the country, according to whoever did that chart and had assigned point values to it all and stuff. But we still had 23 points. Screw it, fire Donovan Raiola, and it's like, yeah, that Minnesota game probably still etches a dark place in some people's minds there. Hold on just a second here. I had something funky happen with one of my earbuds. Yeah, I shouldn't have like a stabbing feeling in my ear. That's not good. All right, let's see here. Okay, so there's Grunkmeyer, and he's been improving, and it seems like slowly but surely they're opening him up a little, letting him start to go downfield a little more. So that's the question that I kind of asked, I think, at the beginning. It was like, okay, do we open up Lateef a little more, or do we, limit the touches, protect him, just put him in the position where he can help, but the game is not on his shoulders. Like say you would Raiola. Raiola, he was one of those weird guys. He came in, and stepped on the field, ready to put the game on his shoulders. Even if, hey, he had stuff to learn like everybody. You could kind of tell there was a different mindset there. But when you start throwing the freshman quarterback in there, this is a guy who has a big future with us, I believe. I think he's very talented, but you don't want to put him in a position where the only experiences are in his head or getting his ass kicked all over the field by Penn State and Iowa, and then that starts, you start getting a little quarterback PTSD there. So that's why I'm wondering, do they start opening him up a little more against Penn State? Because everything about this game screams like low scoring slugfest with 2 freshman quarterbacks going at it. And do you just kind of, hey, let's just try and keep this close at the end and see if like Holgorsen doesn't have a surprise or 2 up his sleeve for him in the 4th quarter? Things to think about. You know what? Let me go ahead. There wasn't a lot of fun numbers to throw at you this week, so I'll just throw the rest of these. Like I threw that, like, we're 4-1 in Penn State since joining the Big Ten. We'll do these, and then we'll get back into the comments and just see where that takes us. So let's see here. We have now held all 10 of our opponents to under 400 yards passing. All right, about 400 passing. Under 400 yards total offense. We are now just one of 7 teams in the country that can say we've done that. Now, let's see, we are. And also, if you want to talk about that 10.5-point spread they dropped on us, feel free to comment on that. Some of you might have thoughts there. But anyway, we are 10-8 all time against Penn State. Now, it was a weird thing, and I think we won like all but one of them. But we played Penn State for something like 5 straight years, like 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, something like that. And 82 was the one where they, kind of incomplete pass was called complete for a touchdown. The completion like 2 yards out of bounds. Every time I see Todd Blackledge smirking about that, I just want to go in there and make fun of what's become his giant head. But yeah, 10-8 all time. 4-1 since joining the Big Ten, and then this is our first meeting since 2020, but Penn State in those 18 games, 9 of them in Happy Valley, and they're 6-3 at home. So there is that. We'll see what their fans. Let me know what you think their fans are going to be like. It's got to be weird trying to get jacked for a game because you can win 2 in a row and go to a bowl. Hey, we did it last year, right? deservedly so. He hadn't been to a bowl in 10 friggin' years. These guys have been to a bowl every year for probably a lot of years. And they were expecting to be in the CFP this year and thought they had a team that could make a run at a title. Is their heart still in it? If they go white out, or they just got to go, you white out this, white this out. Let me know your thoughts on that. Because I know what it's like, like I said, cheering for a 6-6 team that hadn't been to the playoffs in a while. I'm trying to picture, like, say, the '94 season going shitty wrong for us. The year we ended up getting Ozzy's first national title. Yeah, we did it. I was part of that. Yeah, well, if rolling around on a floor, drunk, crying, and hugging people because you won that game was really picking up the team, then good for me. But yeah, what if that '94 team finds themselves 4-6, or wait, what would it be? Yeah, probably. So what? Yeah, what if we're finding ourselves like 4-6 and needing to win 2 just to go to the Tax Slayer Bowl or some scrabber? Hey, the Pinstripe Bowl. Now they've got a Fenway Bowl. It's like Boston says New York can't be the only only place making them play out in 40-degree drizzle. It's like we want to we want to show you we want to get you on our field. And why aren't we playing a damn bowl game in Lincoln if we're going to play in December, January weather? John Perella, who played for the Huskers and I think played for Bills in the NFL. And after losing to Miami again in an Orange Bowl in like '92, he's like, why can't one time they come play us in Lincoln on January 1st instead of we go down there? It's like, come on up. We'll call it the Polar Bowl. And let's see, how that passing game's working for you. If it's 13 degrees and they're shoveling the field before the game. But yeah, anyway, let's just move on here. But yeah, we'll get back. Let's see. That's it, I think. Yeah, that's it for the funny numbers we had. There wasn't much going on there, so I can get rid of the notes and let's see what we got for the comments going here. Yeah, Fred Sacco thinks Belichick's got to be one and done at North Carolina, and yes, that's the only recent success or talk I'd heard. Yeah, that was the rumbling was. Yeah, what's his kid's name? Brian or something? I don't know. Who cares? But I would say his chances of just daddy boy in his way into a Division I head coaching job is looking. The chances of that look very thin right now. Anybody notice the difference between this year's Huskers and last year? Much less penalties and turnovers. I do. And it started for the stuff we were hearing in the spring it continued to be the stuff we heard in the fall. But when the season begins, I was one of the first ones to go. It sounds sincere. And we've actually become older on the line positions, which I like. I like football teams that get old on the line. I think that's one of the reasons that what usually seems to be like a somewhat undermanned Minnesota and their 2 and 3 stars are just churn out the winning records is he's annoying as hell, but PJ Fleck keeps those offensive lines old. They are 22 to 24-year-old dudes, and they train the hell out of them, and then they just teach them here we play physical, and we're going to win with blocking and tackling. Yeah, crazy, huh? But the thing that this year, going back to Joel's question here, is just the way they have bonded. I don't like the line bought in because I've had experience with a couple of coaches who love to talk about buying in, and buying in just means worshiping them and kissing their ass. And so I've seen bought in used in a bad way, but I'll use it here because as much as you see Matt Rhule, in public, going on Pat McAfee, doing his podcast, whatever, doesn't mind being interviewed, but he is like, I want to do everything I can to get us out there, and that includes him, me being kind of a face of this team a lot of the time because I don't want the guy. He loves having the guys interviewed. He said he likes to try and get as many as possible in front of the press, just as a life skill type of thing. Get used to talking in public. and get as comfortable as you can with it. But this team, he sold them on it, and they bought in hard on it, and it's just about be there for each other. It's like own up. It's like you take responsibility and you pick your buddies up, and if they fall, you pick them up, you go do something for them, and you guys just have each other's backs all the time. And and here's Rocco coming in, just a few months, he hasn't been here a year yet, and he's one of those guys that just is has the company line. These guys sound like teammates for life. And he said, this is the thing that will get us over these these close games. Not all of them, but now it's like, yeah, now you don't worry about making the mistakes. You just go out and you play, and you trust your training, and you trust your teammates, and we've got your back. And that was kind of like when Dylan got hurt. And this is even before they knew it was for good. This is when they thought it was an ankle. And here's Matt Rhule saying, because he is that team leader, especially the offense. And he said, he thought it was like everybody over the team at some point came up, hugged him, and said, I got your back. And then the next week against UCLA, the mantra was, everybody just try to do it a little bit better. Do what you do it a little bit better, and give TJ the best chance to succeed. They're going, freshman quarterback. You're getting thrown in a hell of a time. And it's like, you know what? We're going to play better. And if we play better, it gives you that much better a chance of succeeding. And here's the thing. It comes off as very sincere. And you take a look at the record, man. Let's see if they can still do it without Dylan. One thing where Dylan was absolutely nails is the fourth quarter. I mean, in the fourth quarter this season, he's completing like 77% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, no picks. He's made mistakes, but they aren't happening in the fourth quarter. And then we've we were 4-1 in games where we entered the fourth quarter in a 1-score game. And it was like Michigan State, even Michigan. He takes them off the field a couple times in the fourth quarter. We won the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, we came in like 10 points down, but we won that fourth quarter. We won the Michigan State and the game fourth quarter. Maryland won the fourth quarter and the game. Northwestern won the fourth quarter and the game, and then looked like we were setting up. Hey, here we've got a lead now in the third quarter, and whoops! And he came out, and not to jump on TJ. I did not expect much there. And I said the next week, I was like, but here's the thing, give him a week to work with the unit, have Holgorsen, dialing it up for him, even though they said they wouldn't. I mean, they did. And it watched them put him in a position to succeed. And he took it and he ran with it. And it was fun to see. And even today, Dave Holgorsen was talking again about how here's Dylan sitting in. He's there in practice. He's sitting in on every meeting. He's chiming in on the game planning, and he said it's killing him. He says it's like, he's doing everything he can for TJ. He may not be able to travel again, and it sounded like he's pissed about that because he really, really wants to be there for TJ. And what was it he said? He said that this one hurts because he goes at Penn State in front of that crowd. He said it's killing him to miss that game. He wants to be in that game, in a game like that, in a Big Ten game like that, under the lights at Penn State where the crowd's insane. It's like he wants that, and he's like, yeah. And Holgorsen's just like, yeah, guys, this is killing him. I look forward to Holgorsen. He just always ends up cracking me up. he is oh God, it's not sassy. A friend of mine came up with a great adjective for him, but anyway. Let's see. Okay, Joel confirms. Yeah, Bobby Bowden's already passed. I just wasn't 100% sure. Got Nebraska strong. Just has Go Big Red right there. I love it. Andy, what bowl game do you think our Huskers go to? ESPN has us going to the Vegas Bowl. Here's the thing: is there are there's like 4 bowls that say the 7-win barrier gets you into, and fortunately, they're all warm weather. And another, fortunately, is even if we did finish 7-5, I think we're still over that hump. And even if we weren't, the Pinstripe Bowl is one is bowls now try to um, make sure you're not that no team's going there 2 years in a row. And hopefully some of that happened because of the griping from me when they had Georgia playing Nebraska in back-to-back years. I did a column this week talking about that a little bit about, how my love of football started off with Georgia because that was the family team. And then, it ended up, that I go to Nebraska, become a Husker. And I said I did not enjoy watching them play because I said it's like your newest best friend who's been your best friend now for years gets in a fight with your old best friend who you still really like, but you're just out of touch with a little bit. And it's just not enjoyable. And I didn't like it the one year. And I'm like, well, at least I don't send these guys to play 2 years in a row. And so, yeah, one year we were watching Taylor Martinez go at it with Aaron Murray. And then the next year, oh God, it was Houston Card, I think, was quarterback in Georgia. And then we had Tommy in the 99-yard touchdown to oh God. I always want to say Abuka right now because their names are so close together. God, who is it? Played for the Jets for a while. You guys know who I'm talking about. But and I did enjoy it. And Todd Gurley was at like 75% for Georgia, and Nebraska won that one. And I'm like, yes, but I'm good. I don't want to watch these anymore. I right now it's just too tough because there's so many teams in a battle for those bowls with the seven win teams. And the ones that I think are the most in play right now, if I had to guess, would be Vegas, the Music City Bowl, and then maybe the Duke's Mayo Bowl. If we get to 8 wins, I think the Duke's Mayo Bowl comes into play, and then the guaranteed, just the rate. They didn't like guaranteed rates, so they just call it the Rate Bowl. So we got Phoenix, Vegas, Charlotte, and Nashville. Now, if we get to 9, then we're kind of like Illinois last year, and I think we're talking the Citrus Bowl, which is in Orlando, and then there's another one that's in Tampa. That if we get to 8 or 9 wins, that we could be looking at. I wouldn't have a problem with any of them. It's like I just no more New York. It's like I'm glad to say that I kicked it. Chopped off a piece of my bucket list by getting to be in Yankee Stadium, getting to be in the Yankee Stadium press box, and think about some of the baseball names that worked in there. But enough of just being in shit constant 40-degree drizzle. But I not Vegas because I went to Vegas for Big Ten Media Days. So I would be good with. I'd like Nashville because that's a long drive, but then I can just drive that and not have to screw with planes. I might even if it was Charlotte. I just don't. I don't want to be around the mayonnaise shit. It, that just seems to be if I was a coach, I would lose games intentionally to avoid the Duke's Mayo Bowl just so I didn't have to risk winning it and get that. Obviously, like not even just regular mayonnaise would just kind of glop on you, but that watery, creamy shit they pour out of that thing. But Nashville's fun. When I coached our girls, we played in the league where where we went to Nashville a couple of times. They'd host each team would host like a game weekend where you'd play like 4 games in a couple of days, and Nashville was in that rotation. And we played at the Nashville Predators. Like training the big rink area, the rink place, which is their training center. And so Nashville will be a lot of fun. You run a risk of some bad weather there, but at least it's not almost a guarantee like New York or Boston. And but I'd love to go to the Tampa Bay area again though. Took a vacation there, shoot, back in like 2018, and I think we were at some Long Something Bay. There are a couple really good restaurants there. But anyway, I'm good with any of the warm places. If I had to guess right now, I don't want to guess right now because some of these are like almost guaranteed 7-win places, and I'm not going to guess a place that would require us losing 2 games. So let's just say not where I think we'll go, but where I'd want to go. I'll say Tampa. That way, it's not quite as Disneyed up as Orlando, and you got the water everywhere. So I'll go with Tampa, whatever bowl that is. Let's see. Okay, thank you, Husker Bob. 2021. Yeah, I did. I thought Bobby loved, as long as he coached, I thought he loved life too much in general to be one of those guys that was just going to croak right after their coaching days were over. Vegas, yeah, Vegas is at the new stadium. Yeah, but that means like we're probably. I'm wondering where they'd stow the. Well, I tell you what, if they'd stow the press at the same price, because I think it was only like 130, 20, $30 a room for Big Ten Media Days at Mandalay Bay, which is just right across the highway from what is it, Allegiant Stadium, where I'm assuming they play the game. So if they'd put us in there at that price again, okay, that's because I'm just wondering if oh yeah, like I don't know if they'd bump it up a little for with the bowl game in town. Joel Tilson also, we're on the Joel Tilson run right now. Number 2, good question. Will Deion Sanders get canned this year? Um, I don't think Deion would hang around to get canned. I think he would get the warning and would just, and if he couldn't get hired somewhere, he'd do an Urban Meyer and call a health reason and just say, I'm leaving the team instead of, as long as he can get most of his money and instead of getting canned. Now, if they're not gonna pay him that money and let him walk away, then and make him get canned to take the money, then I'm sure he'll get canned. I'm not sure, but here's the deal. I saw that the athletic director that hired him, who I guess has been there a little while, they just announced he is stepping away. It sounds like not a firing thing. Like he'll hold, he's going to hold one of those. Here's a paycheck. Thanks for your service. But the timing just seems a little more than coincidental. Especially with the Shedeur thing, just being one of the dipshit stories of just the idiotic stories of the NFL this season. How is this team's third string quarterback doing? It's like, I get it. He got to the second string. All they had to do was trade one guy, or was it traded Flacco? And I thought they had to get rid of somebody else too, because I thought he was fourth string. Oh, Kenny Pickett. Yeah, trade Kenny Pickett, trade Kenny Pickett and trade Go Flacco. So once they traded 2 guys, they made him a backup quarterback. Until then, he was fourth string. Oh God! And what a shame they don't give him all those first team reps that a originally fourth stringer like Shedeur Sanders deserves to have a chance. Are we even having this conversation if he doesn't have Travis Hunter always, known within 10 yards of him, so he can run around and just fling it to Travis? So he just never learns to throw it out of bounds, which seems like a pretty basic skill. Won't stay in the pocket, always runs out of the back of clean pockets, and then thinks he's got Lamar Jackson speed, but it's more like I don't say Daniel Jones. He's fast. But he's not fast. Yeah, Shedeur is mid-speed, but thinks he's a scrambler, and because he does not make yards with his legs. He gets sacked repeatedly and often for excessive amounts because he's not getting sacked trying to find a hole in the pocket and sneak through. He is running out of the back of it like Chicken Little, and then they're like, "Oh my God, they aren't covering him back there." Yeah, because they had a pocket for him and he left it. Yeah, he lost. Yeah, it's part of his 4 for 16 performance. He, what was it, 1 or 2 picks, and then had 2 sacks for 27 yards. So he's losing 10 and 12 yards when he gets sacked because he's heading backwards 5 before he starts going sideways. So yeah, but that, and then here they are. They're 3-7 right now, and the Arizona State tweeted out Jeff Sims in his dirty uniform from the week before and showing him like walking off the field and saying Jeff Sims walking into Boulder to cost Deion his job. Yeah, Jeff Sims, by the way, is on a nice roll right now. He's taking over for Sam Levitt. He's thrown a couple of picks, but it's not the turnover parade. He ran for threw for 160 or 70 and then ran for 227 in his last game. Good on him. There was never talk that Jeff Sims is a head case or a bad guy. Jeff Sims was nothing but a class act at Nebraska. He just stunk at football while he was here. And I wish it was different. He was a genuinely good dude. He had that leadership or charisma. It wasn't an accident. He had a single-digit number his year at Nebraska. He got voted for one. His teammates respected the hell out of him. Just couldn't not turn it over. So watching him have success gives me nothing but happy thoughts for Jeff Sims. I can't put it any simpler. It's some people are like, why did you do that with us? I don't really hear that. There were a few cracks when he did start, and he did turn it over a couple of times. And you knew this was coming, but but it still seemed to be, but we wish you well. And that's overall what I seem to be getting from what I read, in the harshest place, the Twitter world, the online world, TikTok and all that. And it seems to be Nebraska fans are happy for Jeff Sims, and I am. And you bet your ass, I'm hoping he puts up, especially with that was the game, that was the game that really set him down his path, because it was like, hey, maybe Minnesota was a mistake, and it wasn't. And here we go again. So I would love it if he got some revenge with Dion on the other sideline. Let's see. I want a good bowl, but if I'm honest, I don't want to face a decent team. Way to go, Pitt. Just gotta want the extra W. Well, we'll see. We'll see. ESPN has the Huskers playing Utah in Vegas. Yeah, it doesn't seem. I looked at all this about 2 weeks ago, and then I saw the ones that popped up, the ones you guys are quoting from, and it doesn't seem like the predictions have really changed, because it just seems like I think we went like 1-1. So the roads right now are I think are pointing to Vegas a little, but it also seems like every time here's the place we think you're going, it ends up being someplace else. All right, what's okay, Utah will do. Utah will play their ass off. One of the things I tried to tell people after watching Cincinnati was I didn't know they were going to do as well as they did. I'm not surprised. I thought they had it at them, but I was like, this team competes. It's like they were out there busting their ass, flying at the ball, talking shit, and not backing down from anybody. And it turned out, yeah, that ends up being, that's probably our best one of the year so far. Yep, Gary Pierce, he's kind of like me, any warm bowl, just no New York. Let's see. Yeah, Fred, Utah will probably beat us. It'll be a game. I'll give it that. Florida would be nice. You got to get up, I think, to the 9-win, at least 8, but probably 9-win to get the Florida Bowl. Like the Citrus Bowl, I think is a 9 or 10 win bowl game. Arizona would be nice in December. It is. I was at the Fiesta Bowl, the '96 Fiesta Bowl. It was very nice. What was fun was, that's when, hey, the days are 70s. Maybe it was low 80s. It was pretty comfy. I remember. Then the nights are like the 50s, and that's where you see like the winter wear. You could tell the Nebraska people down there, because they're Nebraska people rolling around in the shorts and like the sweatshirts or the hoodies, and the Arizona people, they got their, they got the winter wear on. They got the Eddie Bauer jackets they're rocking. Virginia Tech. Not somebody said West Virginia signed James Franklin today. It's Virginia Tech, unless he did and I think it was yesterday, unless he did a 180 today, but I thought they announced it was done yesterday. Let's see. Oh, they already got him. Never mind. Oh, sorry, Joel. I didn't see it down the road. They caught you. We ain't. Yeah, they said we ain't done with Rich Rod 2.0 at West Virginia yet. So, let's see. Yeah, McBride agreed to hang out for another year with Frank too. I'm certain that I've heard him speak about the transition plans in the '90s. Yeah, McBride. What it was Tom. And here's the thing: is I don't nothing that outwardly disrespectful, but Frank was not really the alpha in that group of coaches. I don't think it was close. And Tom, one of the things, like, Tom had his ways of, hey, if you could do this for me on my way out. Well, Tom also asked Frank to keep his assistant coaches. So you got a guy where the assistant coaches aren't looking at your head coach with quite the same reference and respect as they did your previous coach. And I would say by a long shot, with Osborne versus Frank. And I think Osborne later said, I just should have left that to Frank, not kind of, hey, come on, do this for me. And then, because Frank finally, I think, gets it. Well, first he keeps a lot of that staff, and then they get Crouch. So they, are in the national title discussion still for a couple years. And then when Crouch leaves, that kind of falls off the table. What that they went 6-7 the next year, maybe. And then he finally, I think, gets his own staff, and that's where he brought in like Bo and Barney, and they go 9-3. But go back and look at that schedule. You'll see what I'm talking about. You can kind of understand why no one was super impressed. I don't know how much of the drinking problem he had, but he did have the DUI at. I know he had one at Ohio, but let's not dive into that too much. Um, let's see. 1965 from Knights Templar, Charles A. Rip Engel, who picked Joe Pa to be the next Penn State coach, would have kicked Joe Pa's butt if he knew what was going on. Yeah, probably. I would hope so. And then said Army wanted it in the year he got fired, but he didn't consider it. Okay, so he got offered Army after he got fired, and then he goes down and does the consultant job at Oklahoma, I think, something like that. And then he gets Ohio. Oh, yeah, there's some more. Let's stay out of Frank. I think Frank's personal life has been dragged enough, so I'm just gonna roll on ahead. Yeah, so yeah, Frank had less distractions in Ohio at Ohio, and probably it's like, no, not gonna bring Carl into this either tonight. I'm trying. I spent it's like I spent enough time talking about Penn State's perversion, so I don't want this to go full on Springer here as we reach the finish line. Let's see. I will let you guys just go ahead and keep talking about that in the chat. Nothing you're saying is incorrect as far as from what I heard at the time. So you guys could chat that up. Pierce says I bet Raiola will stay. Oh no, none of the quarterbacks are going anywhere. Well, he says Uncle Donnie, but Dylan's not going anywhere. I don't think Donnie's getting fired. Here's the thing. I know those two games, Michigan and Minnesota were the ones where the sacks were pretty crazy. Michigan State had a few, but if I remember, most of those were not on the line, and that's why I didn't really talk about that. But no, I think Donnie's shown that he can fix things. That's always his lines. Well, at least the Rhule's last 2 years that I can remember were always better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. And I always thought that Bryce Benhart just devolved to the point of a lost cause, and then he gets at least honorable mention All Big Ten, which is the best you're going to do if you've got a losing record. You're not going to have really anybody on the top three teams hardly. Let's see. Yeah, Devaney, 66 and 67 are both 6 and 4 years afterwards. Well, here he made it was 69, I believe, or 68 where he made him offensive coordinator, because 68 I think was the rock bottom where they averaged 15 points a game. I remember reading this story like as told by Bob Devaney, because they only averaged 15 points a game. So he makes Osborne offensive coordinator, and in 69 they averaged 28 points a game, and then in 70 they averaged like 41 points a game and win their first national title. So yeah, that he always said that he says if it's not for that straight-laced redheaded kid, I don't we don't win any national championships, and I'm probably not working after 69 if we average 15 points a game again. Fred says he's still of the mind to fire Donovan, but we won't. Rhule said he didn't want to keep replacing staff. Well, but is our offensive line coach really sucking when now we've only allowed 2 sacks in the last 3 games, and we've got a running back who was is in the, even with the bye week, he's still like in the top 5 in every category, rushing yards, total yards, I think is where he's still leading everyone. And then touchdowns. It's kind of tough to go fire your offensive line coach when you've got that successful a running back and you seem to have solved your sack problem. Like I said, 2 games left. We'll find out. They might go back to looking lousy again, and especially like I said with injuries mounting, they might go back to looking terrible again. So we'll hold judgment. Right now is not I think a time to be going fire Donovan Raiola, because that's one of those things where okay, who are you going to get? It's like, well, this guy, I'm taking a look at how this guy finished out the year. Is that how I want to be judged? I don't know. We will see how it plays out. Yeah, I think TJ versus Dylan is good for them. I think TJ and Dylan together makes TJ a much better quarterback down the road too. And I mean, yeah, we're not going to lose Dayton. He's a different year. You're gonna bring in a quarterback every single year. You're not going to lose him before signing day. Let's put it that way. He's a monster. He's the monster Husker fan in the family. Uh, but then after him, you got Trey Taylor. But you're going to sign a quarterback every year, and the odds say you're going to lose to him. It's like 75% of quarterbacks transfer because it's just one of those things. If they haven't gotten starts by their junior year, they're probably going to figure it's not happening for me. And a lot of times it's just a step back. They don't just want to ride the bench. It's little playing pads football. If you're not going to the NFL, that's the end of pads football. And so that's kind of why I can understand not wanting to spend it on the bench, hoping somebody sucks or gets injured. Uh, when you've got you've got a set of time under you where it shows, okay, I'm not in their starting future plans. Because like now, like with Gunnar Stockton and Georgia, and like I said, I just followed Georgia, so I know this. He might have been transferring. Who knows? He loves Georgia, but he originally committed to South Carolina because Mike Bobo was the offensive coordinator, and then South Carolina fired him, and so then Gunnar committed to Georgia, and then Georgia hired Bobo. But here, Gunnar didn't start till his junior year. He's one I wonder if somebody else starts because you had a deal where Carson Beck is going into his last year, and then Dylan Rhule is committed to Georgia, and now all of a sudden Gunner's like fourth because it's going to be Beck. This next year he's going to be fourth string. It's going to be Beck. It's going to be like Dylan, or I think they ended up taking Puglisi, but at that point it's going to be Dylan or I always call him Vanderbeek, but he ended up transferring to Kentucky. So then that December rolls around. Beck's, Beck's done. Or Beck's got, one more year left. Dylan flips to Nebraska, and all of a sudden Gunner's the backup, and Kirby goes to him and says, even though he hasn't played very much before his junior year, the coach comes to him and says, "You're my guy next season." And then this is not knowing that Beck's going to get hurt, decide he wants to play another year, but then fuck it, not even talk to Georgia and transfer. And now Gunnar Stockton's obviously making the most of his chances. So it's just an example of me saying, if you're getting to your juniors rolling around and you haven't been told you're the guy going forward is the plan, then I don't blame you. If you just want to play ball, then I don't blame you. Go find a school where you can play. You're probably dropping down. Who cares? All right, let's see. I ain't so certain Rhule doesn't do something for the O-line. By the way, if they go to a second O-line coach, you guys remember, who was your genius? It was me. He never thought of it. It was me. He stole it. I'm going to get a royalty. No, wouldn't shock me if they did that. That could be the doing something on the O-line. No, I don't think so. I think what you'll see is Dylan go right back in and be number one. I don't think that there's a potential for it if TJ goes out and has monster games in the next two games. I wouldn't bet on it with those defenses, but the way I think, because here's the thing, he came in there knowing that Dylan was already the starter, right? So it's not like, oh, he's going to get pissed because he's not starting. He came in there knowing what the score was. So I think he was prepared to spend a couple years waiting his turn. So I don't know. And if not, even Rhule said at the press conference, they were saying, well, what do you think? People, he brought it up himself. He wasn't asked. He goes, you don't think TJ's getting calls right now? Hey, come play for us next year. Come play for us. He goes, yeah. He goes, these guys are getting those calls. We know it. We try to deal with it by taking care of them, being very upfront what the situation is, and we love the guy and we hope he stays. And it sounds like he and Dylan are, best friends. What do you call Dylan? His big brother. So yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't know. Let's put it this way. He's going somewhere before Dylan is, because I think Dylan's going into spring number one. So that's just my call, my guess. Let's see. Oh God, here we go. I would trade Donovan, Dylan, and Dayton for a kick-ass offensive line coach who can protect Lateef and Trey and run a successful offense. Well, if there were such trades, that might not be a bad idea. But who's that guaranteed offensive line coach? I don't know. Why not a coach for every player? Sarcasm. I'm good one, Gary. Let's see. I want all the coaches. It says Pit Snipe. Follow the Saban plan. Yeah, but Saban was doing that before you could have all the coaches. Yeah. Think about all those coaches, though. It's like at a certain point, it's a little too much, I think. Yeah, Pit Snipe said he'd sign off on Sack's deal. Uh, yeah, absolutely. I think they're keeping them both. I think they're both back. Let's see. Sacco, I think zone read and play action and split back plays could be the difference and cool that PSU blitz. We'll see. We will see. Let's see here. Sam Pittman is offensive line analyst. Is that his background? I guess I was never sure on that. Yeah, why not? Or just as that co-coach. Would you take right now? Right now, I don't know. I here's why I'd lean into it. I absolutely understand why they went with that line. I mean, 100% easy. I know why they want where they're going with that line, that score line. I just don't know that Penn State that they're gonna beat us up so bad like that. To me, the 10.5 point spread is a 21-10 game. I don't know if we're getting held to 10, but I can see it in play if we can't do anything in the air or with TJ's legs. If it just has to be Emmett alone, then maybe they can load up. I'm tempted with the 10.5, and maybe it's changed today. We'll see. I do expect some movement this week. I'm curious to see what it is. Right now, I'd probably take Nebraska. I would say, look, I've got the poll coming out tomorrow morning, so you can jump in. And one of them is, what do you think about that spread? And so, and one of mine is, the Rock will tell you what you can do with that spread, and it starts with turning that sumbitch sideways. And so, let's go with Nebraska. Let's see, Chargers. If you're talking about Perella, I believe he also played with the Bills, though. I think he played for both. Let me see here. Let's use some of this here technology edge and look up old John Perella. Oh, come on, dude. Perella football. I love these baseball, football references. Because I could be wrong. Nope. No. Hey, rookie year Buffalo, and then San Diego for the next 7. Or is it 8? Next 8. 94 to 2001, and then 3 years with Oakland. Damn, Perella played he entered the league 24 years old and played till he was 35. But yeah, first year was with Buffalo. We are both right. Damn straight, y'all. All right, let's see. We roll here. Andy's got the poll coming out tomorrow morning. Yes. Oh, good. See, if I keep reading down, sometimes I find it. Perella started Patella. Perella was the one. Yeah, I remember him loving that Colorado game. It ended up in a tie because they got to throw snowballs at our kicker while he was trying to kick the field goal, and all the rest did was kind of wave their arms a little instead of flagging him 15 and letting us do it again, because McCartney had already warned the crowd and just smirked too. They made McCartney warn the crowd they get penalized if they kept throwing snowballs, and he just kind of waved his arms and smirked like "fuck you," and all the more reason to hate that guy. Over under is, I believe, 44.5. I think was what I saw. I'll have all Thursdays. I do sometimes Fridays, but I try for Thursday. I do the how to watch article, and I make sure to include the spreads in there. Pit Snipe, Oakland. I'd forgotten about Oakland too. Perella played in that Super Bowl. The Niners killed him. Yeah. TJ. Well, that's the thing. TJ only threw 2 passes against UCLA that I think were over about 6 yards. Like the 29-yard Dane Key reception, I think he caught that one about 5 or 6 yards and then took off for the rest. And then, but the wheel route was about 20 something yards in the air. And then the most impressive one was on the last drive there, where they just had him running a short one, and that was covered, and he threw it down to Isaiah Hunter for 17 yards and a first down. And then I think Emmett ran it twice, and then it was time to run the clock down. But yeah, those I think were his longest passes. Don't forget that wheel route, man. I can't believe this is what pissed me off is I saw Dylan and Emmett doing that wheel route in the spring when they let us watch practice and drills, with guy covering him. And then I saw it again in the fall. And Emmett or Dylan was just dropping that wheel route, just dropping dimes to Demet, and none of the Emmett, and none of the linebackers couldn't cover him. Safeties really couldn't cover him, and he's just running by, and Dylan's just dropping it into him. And I'm like, and now, but we wait for the freshman to throw the wheel route. Well, I'm glad they did. At least I'm glad they did it then. That was a very nice ball. Let's see. Why would anybody think TJ can't throw it? Just that he hasn't thrown it in that situation against this kind of defense before. No, Dylan said it. Holgorsen said it. He throws a nice ball. And the thing is, he didn't, despite the legs, he didn't run in high school much. He ran for like 250 yards each his junior and senior years, and at about 3.5 yards a carry. So that's why some people are like, start putting in options and all this shit. Like, this guy doesn't have experience with this. And take it from a guy who spent 2 weeks trying to learn option football, and it worked out, but it doesn't mean I was comfy. I was maybe getting a little comfortable with those reads by the end of the year. Mostly I just wanted to keep it. Shit. Hey, I was a high school kid trying to get noticed by girls. Kill me. And then what my Pitt says his stepdad was the first service manager when Perella's opened in Grand Island. Is Perella's a restaurant? Haven't heard of that. Good for him though. And yeah, both TJ and Dill, yeah, both good. I just love those. I want those two to stay together. First of all, just how Dylan's feet aren't stuck in cement. Watch closer. He avoids a lot of sacks. He doesn't have open field. He's not as fast as TJ, but he does. If it's one-on-one, usually they're not tackling him. He's darting him out of the way. He's got some pretty quick feet he's not super slow. Okay, auto dealership, not restaurant. So, but anyway, I want these guys staying together simply because I think I just love their relationship. These guys seem super tight. I think they're good for each other. I think as a mentor, Dylan is fantastic for TJ, and it just sets up a nice progression of quarterbacks. Sure, we'll lose, maybe we lose Dayton because he doesn't play. Maybe we lose Trey Taylor because he doesn't play. Yeah, right now we don't have. It's better than what we had the last few years, but Rhule, Lateef, that's two elite players. Then you're down to Jalen Gramstead. No offense, but a guy that transferred here from Northwestern State, an NAIA school, is not elite. And if you're backing up the guy who transferred, not that I'm saying he's bad, but that's not a huge talent. That's not a guy you're going to see rolling out on Sundays. And I think he could be in and be efficient, but he's going to be the guy that's going to do put him in late. He's going to be the Matt Turman. He has to manage the offense and not lose you the game. And if Marcos Davila, who is was a four-star prospect, comes from Nebraska to be and is the fourth string as a four-star who just transferred from Purdue of all places, that's not striking me as a guy who's going to compete for the starting job down the road. Is my opinion now. And here's the thing: when some guys like, don't talk bad about college kids that way. I'm not snarking off. I'm not trying to get a laugh out of it. I'm not trying to insult them. They're playing Division I football. They can handle big boy criticisms from the press, even if the press is only me, and they can go out and prove me wrong. And if he goes out and doesn't prove me wrong, it's not like it's a ha-ha moment. For me, it's just here's how I see it as a guy who watches football. Now, 2 years from now, like, here's the thing. Suppose Dylan has the kind of arm, I believe, and people have fought me on this, but is a guy who could potentially be approached to turn pro after his junior year. We'll see how next year goes. And if not, then he's here. And so his senior year, then we could be looking at a room of Dylan, TJ, and TJ at that point. I think there's TJ just looking to play maybe his senior year. Maybe he doesn't want to hang around for that. If it gets to that, because he's just 1 year behind Dylan. And so you got a room of, if they're all here, let's just say they are, not argue, yes, he'll be or he won't be. You'll have Dylan, you'll have TJ waiting to start his senior year. You will have Dayton starting his sophomore year, and you'll have Trey Taylor getting ready to start his freshman year. And now you will have 3 guys that are fairly elite high school quarterbacks. And like they talk about Millard South can beat anybody. Well, no, they can't. They've got like the 12 or 13 D1 prospects, which is, hey, that's something. Dayton starts for a team, I believe, with 26 or 7 guys that have D1 offers at Buford, Georgia, where Dylan was the quarterback, and Dayton now is starting his second year as the starting quarterback. And I think he got them to what did he get them to last year? The semis of state. And Georgia state football's Georgia now is pretty much considered up there with Florida, Texas, and California as far as prospects. Georgia, it's not like the big 3 anymore; it's the big 4. So so those 4 guys are not likely all going to be sitting there at that point. That's just, it's the world we live in. It, and I get it. We'll hate the guy that leaves, and we'll love the guy that comes in, and all that. But every year, everybody's taken one quarterback, and that's where we are. And if you've got a room full of as highly recruited quarterbacks as those 4 are, you probably aren't going to be. They're not going to be sharing that room for long. So anyway, looks like a good place to cut her off. Yeah. Braska Rascal here points out. Yeah, they call him Gramstead Granddad. He's their old man. All right, one last question. Will TJ handle Penn State and Iowa's at pass rush? The question is, will our line handle their pass rush? Because if they give him some protection, time to run around, then I think he'll be fine. I also think that's easier said than done, and we'll find out just how much so, and how a lot of that's going to come down to how Holgo screens that. That was a good question. That's why I stuck it in there. Fred says Fred said it's player for players take criticism. They're making decent to great money. Yeah, they're just kids, but they're my kids, so I'm not gonna rip into them unless they do something so stupid it bears being made fun of. And Fred, I can't put it any better. Cut her off, Andy. Cut her off. Pitt's night. He's begging for more. It's 2:17. We got a decent number of viewers in tonight. I think we've had a good time. I want to thank you guys for listening. I do. There you go. Be sure and check our articles at Corn Nation. Hey, we writing shit. Then you got Monday Night Therapy on the Mondays. Hey, there's us. Happy Husker. I'm just throwing all our banners out there at once. Make sure you join Corn Nation's YouTube as a member. It looks good for whatever support stuff we need. That's beyond my pay grade at this point. It may not be always, but it is for now. And appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thanks for coming in so much. Had fun tonight. Special shout out to Jarek if he stuck his head back in for a look. Thanks for coming in. Jarek. I'm trying to say Jarek and Does, and it's coming out Derek Juz, which is better than Derek Jizz. So we're going to say that one at a time. Jarek does do an awesome job of breaking down the basketball for us. I'll see if I can get John and/or Miley in next week. It's about time for that maybe Miley can come in and talk about some of the fun of the volleyball road trip. She didn't go. She went to the UCLA football game the week before, but she can talk about how both of their arenas had fans wrapped around the place, and we'll talk about that next week so I don't get going again. Cut her off. All right, guys. Good night. Thank you. Have a great rest of the week. We'll be cheering or suffering or both together on Saturday. As always, go Big Red.